an NPR interview, it wouldn't be as messy as it is back there.
Recording. Sí, vamos a empezar, sí, a grabar. Y buenas tardes. Hay luz, hay luz. Wow. Llovió aquí esta mañana un poquito. Lluvia muy ligera, ¿sí?
Más lluvia aquí en Pinnacle Peak anoche y la mañana.
Y durante la mañana, sí. Aquí durante la mañana hasta mediodía, más o menos, sí. Quizás a la 1 un poquito, pero después se acabó. Finished up, sí, se acabó. It ended.
Marilyn, how would you say intermittently rained? You know, it rained, it stopped and started and stopped and started.
Oh, pues de vez en cuando. Voy a buscar si hay mejor manera. Oh, hay una palabra, intermitente. Intermitente. Casi exactamente como en inglés, con mente, intermittently. Sí. Intermitente, buena palabra, ¿sí?
Gracias.
Intermitente.
Wow.
Había lluvia intermitente. Así es. Bueno, a ver, entonces, sí. Bueno, hoy es la última clase de invierno. De la temporada del invierno con Scottsdale y no tenemos clase la semana que viene, ¿ok? Entonces, la última semana de marzo no hay clases, pero la primera semana de abril, ¿sí? Entonces, comenzamos otra vez la primera semana de abril. Creo que va a ser como el 5 de abril. Sí. El 5, algo así. Okay.
Sí.
Ok,
Sí.
muy bien. Bueno, vamos a practicar un poquito con usar el pasado otra vez. Vamos a ver cómo se usa el participio. Hay muchos usos. Diría que prácticamente hay 3 usos del participio pasado. Es como en inglés ed. Tired, used.
Cansada.
Sí, así, ¿ok? Todas las palabras con ado, ido, una forma irregular. Y quizás se puede decir hay 4, pero principalmente hay 3 usos. Y vamos a hablar del uso de como adjetivo. Y ustedes van a practicar el uso del adjetivo, el participio pasado, ¿ok? Bien. Creo que podemos hablar un poquito de la voz, sí, un poquito de la voz pasiva. We're going to talk a little about passive voice and how it differs from that. But just like a light treatment of that, because in conversational Spanish, passive voice is not really a thing that is super common. It is used much less. And because English just uses passive voice passionately and constantly, we want to do that because we want to translate that. And there is a way to translate that. But the problem is that although it can be translated, passive voice is really reserved for more formal language, and we'll see how and how to get away from that, because there is an easy way to get away from that. Using stuff you already know. That, okay? Bien? Sí. Juanita.
Pregunta. When we were watching the video, there seemed to be times where they used an Ado or Edo word, and it wasn't with ser, and it wasn't with haber. So would that, and it didn't seem to describe a noun anywhere close to it that I could see.
Well,
Would that have been the passive voice then?
we'll take a look at what that looks like so you can
Okay.
tell, so that you can identify what it is when you hear it. But it really won't be necessary for you to speak using it. And that's my point. To hear it and recognize this is what they mean is one thing and is okay. Because in many of the videos you've had, they actually used a fair number of examples with passive voice. But for you to need to use it in conversation is pretty infrequent. So to recognize it is okay, but to speak using it in a lot of cases, unless you're standing up, giving a formal speech, in which case it would be pretty much okay. Or, you're writing an article for a newspaper, pretty much okay. But chit chat, people be like, why are you doing that? Because they do something else. So we're going to show you what the something, yeah. Do you want to go to a restaurant? And, English does similar things. Some of these structures are perfectly good grammatically speaking. They're fine. But, what are you more likely to say when you go to the restaurant and you got the menu in front of you and you're talking with the people around you just for fun, your friends? And what are you more likely to say? Hey, what are you going to have? Or what shall we order tonight? What are you more likely to say? You sit down with some guy you just guzzled a bunch of beers with, and you go, what shall we order tonight? So you want to know what you say instead, which is, hey, what are you going to order? All right, so we'll talk about that later tonight, although it's going to be with different grammar structures. Okay, a ver. Muy bien, muy bien, muy bien. Vamos a ver. We're going to finish up we're going to tie up some stray ends here. Tie that stuff up. We're just going to do a little bit extra. We had a couple of slides from last week that we didn't take a look at. So hopefully you had some time to look at that now. Uy, a ver, ¿dónde está? Está aquí. Está aquí. Here it is. Ay, 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 ay. ¿Dónde está? Sí. Vamos a usar el pasado. And the clue for how do you avoid passive voice is basically this, people. Just talk using the past tenses and avoid passive voice. Avoid it like the plague when you're chit-chatting with people, because they'll think it's kind of stilted. Okay, so this is a continuation of what we did last week. We're just practicing imperfecto and pretérito, right? And it is wide open. You can say anything in the past about these. Now, in some situations, you may want to, because of what you mean, you may want to use pretérito. That may be more appropriate. Or if you're doing a lot of describing, instead of telling steps what people did in the picture, just describing, imperfecto will be way more pertinent, will be more common, will make more sense. So, the things we can use with these pictures are either ¿qué hicieron? What did they do? O ¿cómo eran distintos estos trabajos? How were these jobs different? How were these jobs different? See? Bien, so ¿qué hicieron? What did they do? That is going to be talking about what happened, what you interpret. Oh, what did the person do in that picture? Pretérito. Pero, ¿qué hacían? What were they doing? cómo eran distintos estos trabajos, how were these jobs different, description, something that uses imperfecto or something that was going on in the background. Okay, y tenemos aquí, por ejemplo, you can talk about any one of these or all three of these. Ahí sí, de tres, no importa. Tenemos una persona que es artista, aquí una persona que es mesera o camarera, bien, y amigas que están en un restaurante o estaban en un restaurante, y aquí una maestra de niños, una maestra de primaria. Maestra de primaria es, ¿qué tipo de maestra? Elementary school teacher, sí, maestra de primaria. Ok, ¿qué ideas en el pasado podemos usar para hablar de las fotos?
Una artista pintó un lienzo grande, a canvas, a big canvas.
Sí, sí,
The artist
sí.
painted a big canvas.
Un artista, sí, pintó. Aquí pintó. Momentito, necesito algo más grande aquí. Tengo que engrandecer. ¡Ay! Momentito, es porque tengo... Es porque traté de cambiar el tamaño de la pantalla. Ok, mejor. Un artista pintó en una lienza a canvas, sí, pero pintó, muy importante, painted, nada más, y sí. Bueno, ¿qué más?
La bibliotecaria disfrutaba leyendo un libro a los niños.
Disfrutaba de leer a los niños.
Mostraba. Leyendo.
Ok.
Is
La
that passive?
biblioteca, no, leyendo no es pasiva, ¿sí? No es forma pasiva. La biblioteca.
La bibliotecaria, the librarian.
Bibliotecaria, perdón, bibliotecaria. Sí, librarian, sí. Disfrutaba, was enjoying, was having fun with us, sí. Disfrutaba de leer. Sí, aquí no es tan frecuente usar leyendo, ¿sí? Disfrutaba de leer a los niños. Ok. Excelente, sí. She was enjoying doing that. Es descripción, sí.
So that's better than saying leyendo?
Going to read to kids.
En inglés, enjoyed reading, pero reading es técnicamente sustantivo. Reading is being used as a noun. Cuando usamos ing como noun, sustantivo, es el infinitivo, leer. Otro ejemplo, en otro contexto, sería como me gusta montar en bicicleta. I like riding a bike. Disfrutaba de escuchar la música salsa, la música ranchera, la música clásica, lo que sea. ¿Bien? Sí. When we use the ing as a noun, it's got to be the infinitive. Okay? Okay.
Oh, okay.
I could say estaba leyendo I could say, pero, estaba leyendo no es como le gustaba leer. Disfrutaba de leer, no. Disfrutaba de leer, pero leyendo, sí. No se puede usar leyendo con gustar, con disfrutar. Okay, we can't use the ing in that way. Okay.
Oh, because disfrutaba is from an infinitive? Because you have two verbs in a row, or?
I have two verbs in a row, but this in particular, if you say somebody enjoyed reading is being used as a noun, the activity of reading.
Okay.
And in that kind of context, Spanish will not use the ing structure. It will only use the infinitive.
The infinitive.
And that's why that is that way. And it's after that word de, that means it's got to slap into leer. But yeah, the ing, the gerund being used as a noun has to be infinitive. Okay. Entonces, so a different example, but a different structure from that would be something like, cooking is a delight. Cocinar es un placer. Cocinar es un placer. No se dice cocinando es un placer, ¿ok? En inglés es cooking, pero hablamos de la actividad de cocinar, ¿sí? O, por ejemplo, lavar el carro es una tarea difícil. Washing the car is a difficult chore. Washing the car es lavar el carro. Es así, ¿sí? Ok. ¿Bien? Vale. Ok. Bueno. Ok. ¿Qué más? ¿Qué más?
I have one. Los dos mujeres dieron la camarera sus orden. Is that how?
Las dos mujeres
Las dos.
le dieron, le dieron, gave her
their order. So I didn't say ley, but you would need to put ley.
le pidieron would really be the way you'd probably say that. I know we say gave her the order, but to give an order is pedir.
Pedir. Okay, thank you.
¿Sí? Le pidieron, y es simplemente otro verbo, ¿sí? Le pidieron algo de comer o algo del menú.
Okay,
Bien,
gracias.
sí, así.
Sí.
Es mejor usar el verbo exacto, ¿sí? It's just a way of phrasing. Give an order is, more usually, or ordenar, ¿sí? Ordenar.
Oh, right.
We could use that too, because that's another verb that is used in the same context as using pedir. Entonces, es posible, ordenaron, ¿sí? Ordenaron. No puedo escribir a máquina. Ordenaron. Aquí, mejor. Ordenaron algo de comer, ¿sí? Y el acto es muy pretérito. They gave an order. They put their order in. Sí, pidieron, ordenaron, nada más. Pretérito, muy fácil, muy fácil. Ok, vale. Otra idea.
Do you have one?
Algo.
I wrote another one. Nunca en mi vida yo trabajé de una camarera.
Camarera.
En el restaurante.
Nunca okay. This is a never have I ever comment, right?
Yeah, but I never have I ever worked. And then, so I used preterite. Never have I ever worked.
Okay.
Hey,
Mejor, better in that case. This is one thing where that participle may come in, but in a way we're not going to talk about tonight. Nunca he trabajado de
never-
camarera. Nunca he trabajado de camarera. When we've got the idea of never have I ever, I have never worked as a, lo que sea, whatever job it may be. Bien, see, that is a case where you may use haber, which is the e part for yo, see, with trabajado. Es posible. Okay. Bien. Y trabajado, no importa si es mujer ni hombre, trabajado there does not go into gender because it's working with that verb haber, which is what gets conjugated. Okay. He trabajado, yo he trabajado, tú has trabajado, mi amigo ha trabajado, hemos trabajado, we have worked, sí. Mis amigos han trabajado. Así. Ok. Vale. Ok. Hay más. ¿Nada? ¿Nada? Siguiente. 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 Tenemos a unas personas que están esperando o estaban esperando, ¿sí? Haciendo cola, hacer cola, esperar. Y el pobre aquí es esqueleto. Ok. Y hay una pareja que va a entrar al cine también. Ok.
Ok. Los clientes estaban en la fila de farmacia. Uno de ellos esperó tanto tiempo que murió y se volvió un esqueleto.
Me gusta mucho, sí. Entonces estaban en la fila, sí, estaban en la fila, sí, en la tienda, en la farmacia, en el súper, donde sea, wherever it may be, sí. Ok, sí, sí. Y un pobre sí se murió. O una pobre, sí, porque tiene bolsa, got a bag there, sí. Ok, bien. En el súper, en la farmacia, algo así. Ok, a ver, bueno, otra idea.
I had something sort of crazy. I said, estaba cansada de esperar en una cola larga. Así que
Estaba cansado o...
cansada.
Si hablamos de todas las personas...
That was me. I was trying to talk about me.
Oh, yo, sí.
I was tired.
Sí, yo estaba cansada.
Cansada.
Sí, sí, estaba cansada de esperar o de hacer cola.
Oh,
Hacer cola es stand in line.
okay.
Sí, estar en fila también igual. Esperar, wait, igual, sí. Ok, sí. Todos.
Right. Then I wanted to say I left. So I left.
So I left. Así que, así que
That's
salí de la tienda.
Oh,
Oh.
so- Can I say-
Me fui.
Me fui igual. Así que me fui. Excelente, sí. Así que me fui, salí de la tienda. Ok. Bueno, ok.
Una pregunta.
Sí.
So if you were using esperar to wait, would you say that la gente esperaba or esperaban? No, it would be, if I used gente, it would be one person. La gente esperaba en la fila or esperó?
Esperaban o esperaron. They waited or they were waiting. Depende en la idea que tú personalmente quieres expresar. Ok, entonces, es posible decir, todos esperaron por media hora.
Okay.
Si el énfasis, si la idea principal es la cantidad de tiempo, como por ejemplo media hora, ¿sí? Entonces, pretérito es mejor. Todos esperaron por media hora. Everybody waited for half an hour. If I'm limiting it, if my emphasis is how long, then it's probably a done deal. It may be a done deal. Pretérito may work better. If I'm just very vague about it and I am describing how they felt, it might be more an imperfecto, como así, como esto, like this. Esperaron, o esperaban tanto tiempo que
That the man became a skeleton.
What I said.
esperaban tanto tiempo que un cliente se murió.
Right. I got it.
They were waiting so damn long that one of them died. Okay.
Okay, thank
¿Cómo
you.
así?
That's fine.
Sí. O que todos se enojaron, that everybody got mad.
Okay.
Algo así, ¿sí? There are times where, you may use esperar to express one idea in preterite, but the other may be better or imperfecto. If it's more describing, imperfecto will be better. If the emphasis is on it was for a certain amount of time, then pretérito will be a better choice because it conveys that idea of finality. It fit within this time period of media hora. ¿Entienden? ¿Sí?
Yes, thank you.
So that's why with these pictures, there's not necessarily only one right answer. It really depends on the idea, right? You want to convey. Así es. Ok. Otra idea. Hay otra.
I had la gente estaba esperando en una fila en una tienda.
También posible. Ok. También posible. Estaba esperando así a la gente. Un momentito.
But that would be singular then, wouldn't it? La
Sí,
gente.
la gente, sí, muy importante, porque muchas veces hablamos de la gente, the people. People were waiting. Y en inglés, sí, people was waiting, nadie, no. Pero en español, sí, la gente estaba esperando. And here we can use your esperando, Karen, because I'm pairing it up
You're
with
using estar?
estar.
Okay.
Exacto. La gente estaba esperando, sí,
En una fila.
En una fila, en la fila, sí. Bueno, sí. Estaba esperando gives it a kind of a rolling feel with that ando, thing at the end, right? Phrasing it as la gente esperaba is really about the same idea, but the structure also means was waiting, people were waiting, but it gives it more of a moving kind of feel.
Does it give it more of a feeling that they were waiting a long time than just saying?
Yeah, it kind of drags it out. Yeah, you could say, yeah. Sí. But there's not a huge difference between estaba esperando and esperaba. In English, people were waiting. Boom. Yeah. It's just that in Spanish, we've got these two structures, and you can use these two kind of interchangeably in this idea because you mean were waiting, or, okay, that group was waiting. Okay. Bien. ¿Algo más? ¿O no? Nada, 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 nada. Okay. Ok, bien. Bueno, vamos a ver. Siguiente. Next. I asked you to watch only a part of this because if you watched all those uses for participles, your brain is going to turn to mush.
I did.
It
I did, and it did.
Okay. So now, here's the thing. All those things were very valid. That's a good thing to kind of keep. Maybe if you have a saved file for YouTube, to save it and go back and look at the different segments. But it's better with this to take it apart into parts so you can practice each separate part. Because what starts to happen with this participio, and now when we're talking about participio, we're talking about the words that in English would generally speaking be ending in ed, but not the verb form of the ed, okay? And we have a lot of irregulars in English as well. We're using this participle as a describer, okay? We're taking the first use. So the difficulty with the participio, and actually I'm going to take this off for a minute so I can show you in kind of a bigger picture why it winds up screwing up people's brains. And then you say, "Duh, what do they mean?" Okay, but we're going to break it apart so that hopefully your brain doesn't do así para que el cerebro no explota, or explote, para que no explote, so it doesn't explode. Okay, you've got these things which we call participles, past participles, which are words that generally end in ado or ido. They may be the irregular structures. They may be those. We won't take a look at all of those yet. The irregular ones are sadly kind of common. But okay, here's the bad thing. Let's take let's take enojar. Enojar. You got to make the participle. You know how to do this. Enojar, it's an AR verb. If you want to make a participle out of it, it becomes
Enojado.
enojado. Now that word, which technically would mean angered, yeah, we can't use that word enojar to be a verb by its all lonesome self. We cannot. So, if you want to say he got mad, you can't take that word enojado and just use it as the verb. El enojado. No. No se puede. You can't do that. We're going to use this enojado to describe how somebody was. So if we're using it to describe how somebody was, or maybe even with an animal, un animal, el oso con cocaína, or the cocaine bear, whatever. Bien, see, wow, you may see it appear in all these different forms. Enojada, you may see it as enojados. You may see it as enojadas. You may see it that way. And that means it's describing somebody or something. Okay? Bien? This is using the participle as a describer. And anytime we have a describer, an adjective, it looks at the noun it's talking about. And it has to make nice with, match up in the form with the thing or the person it's talking about. And that's all that word is going to do in the examples we're using right now. Bien? Okay. So even though this comes from a verb, we are not using this word as a verb. We're not using it as an action word. Okay? We're using it to describe somebody's emotional state in this case. Yeah? See? Okay?
Mhm.
It's an adjective. So it's going to take all these different forms, but then other times you may see it used only as enojado paired up with a verb like haber. And in that case, enojado will only be enojado. Yeah. And then it becomes a perfect tense verb. So let's look at participle. We're going to look at it only as these little things here. Ido, por ejemplo, let's take entender. Entender. See? And because nobody says understanded, even ED doesn't work in that to make it a participle. Even in English, we say, that idea is understood. So you begin to see with understood how many oddball things happen with participles, even in English. English is very, very guilty of that. But in Spanish, this will be very regular for the participio pasado. It's an ER verb, so it's going to be entendido, entendido, entendida, right? If we need to make it plural, entendidos, sí, entendidas. So it may take any of those forms. So even though these participles are formed from a verb originally, they are not functioning or doing the job of a verb. They are doing the job of a descriptive word, an adjective. That's what they're doing. Okay. So we're going to take a quick look at reviewing how we do that. And then, en caso de que alguien tenga pregunta, in case somebody has a question about it, participios como adjetivos. This is job number 1 of the 3 jobs. So this is what happens. And if you have a question about any of these, interrupt. We're going to do the review before we do the practice. Okay? Bien? So they're very easy to form. And keep in mind that when this word is used to describe something or someone, you've got to match it in gender, masculine, feminine, and in number, singular and plural, to the noun, the person or thing that it is describing. So, hablar, talked or spoken. Yeah, it depends on how you're using it, right? Comprar, comprado, bought, and that may have a feminine form or a plural form. Para que sepan, ¿sí? Besar, besado is the participle, okay? All of the ER and IR verbs are going to share the same kind of ending. They won't be ado, they'll be ido. So, comido, eaten, because we don't say eated. Yeah, that ED rule isn't even very good for English. Eaten, right? Bebido, drunk. Yeah. Well, yeah, drinked. That doesn't sound right, does it? Leído, read, which
Yeah,
is,
read.
yeah, not read it, but read. Lo, there's another weirdo thing in English, right?
And we even spell it the same way, so.
And we even spell it the same way, but we pronounce it differently, read and read. Yeah, go figure. See? Okay. Ir becomes ido, and then it's gone because we don't say goed. Dormido, asleep, really, yeah. It's going to be more like sleeping or asleep in this case. I know on this webpage I copied it from, it said slept, but yeah, technically that's a participle. Pedir, pedido, asked for or requested, right? Okay, so sometimes we use these with the verb estar, and sometimes maybe we won't. Sometimes it'll just be an adjective like blue, tall, cute, ugly, but sometimes we use it with estar. So let's take a look at some of those. This is like one hallmark of a way we use these participles. Jorge está cansado. Okay. Mis amigos están enojados conmigo. Maria está cansada. We've got a feminine form because now cansada is talking about Maria, right? Estoy dolido por lo que pasó. I am hurt. I feel badly. Yeah. Por lo que pasó. On account of what happened. See? Los niños están cansados. Here we've got a plural form. The kids are tired. Fernanda está aburrida. Fernanda is bored. Notice it is not Fernanda es aburrida. Fernanda es aburrida would mean she is
Boring.
no one wants to be with her.
boring.
Please. Oh, she is. It is a pill to be with this woman. Yeah. But está aburrida tells how she feels. Aburrida. She's the one who feels bored out of her gourd. Okay. Las niñas están cansadas. So you've got cansado, cansada, cansados, cansadas, right? Here we've just got different different participles. Tus hijas están emocionadas por el viaje. Your daughters are excited by, or really would say, on account of the trip. They're excited because they're about to go somewhere, right? Están emocionadas. And all of these words, when we often we pair these up with estar, and that ado or ido has to talk about the human being they're describing because they're still just adjectives. Sometimes this adjective is not used with estar, and we do the same thing in English. So you might say, por ejemplo, es posible decir aquí, Fernanda está aburrida. Fernanda is bored. Or you could say, Fernanda, muy aburrida, salió de la reunión. Fernanda, really, she was bored, left the meeting. Yeah. And just use aburrida without estar. That is possible. So we got all these examples here. You may not see estar, but it may still be used as an adjective. Okay, la casa abandonada. The abandoned house. It's empty. Nobody living there, right? La casa abandonada. Abandonada habla de la palabra casa. It's talking about casa. Asusta a los niños pequeños. It scares the little kids. See? Erika, harta, se fue de la casa. Fed up, Erika left the house. Okay. Bien? And we did not say Erika estaba harta. It's possible. Es posible decir Erika estaba harta y se fue. Erika was fed up and she took off. Oh, Erika, harta, fed up, se fue. Okay, bien. Dale de comer a los chicos hambrientos. Hambrientos is kind of a, that's a participle that you're not, it's a commonly heard one, but it's not one you're going to form tonight. This is an irregular, right? La niña dormida. And here's what I wanted to show you about this dormida thing. La niña dormida desapareció. The sleeping girl disappeared. What we mean is the girl who was asleep, the girl in a sleeping state, sleeping girl, she disappeared. She completely disappeared. In Spanish, even though you can't use this durmiendo, even though in English we would say sleeping, the sleeping girl means she was asleep, right? The sleeping girl. The sleeping girl means you're describing her as she was asleep. And asleep is dormida. I cannot use durmiendo. Even in English, I use an ing word here. This is why we can't translate word for word. Right? If it's describing that girl, right? Dormida is the right idea. So we can't really use the gerund here as an adjective, even though in ing, that's okay in English. In Spanish, not so much. Okay. Bien. Okay. Before. Anybody got a question on how we form this? No? Nada? Okay. Here's where we come to the oddball words, but sadly, many of these are kind of common. There are a lot of very frequently used descriptive words, participles that wind up being oddballs, like English understood. Okay. Or like English spoken. Or like English eaten. Okay. And they're not that nice ado or ido. They're just forms you just have to know. So resolver becomes resuelto, right? And you've got the translation there. Pero, muy común, muerto. Wow. That one you see all the time. Número dos, muerto. See? Muerto, dead. Okay. Abierto, open. See? Escrito, written. See? Roto, broken. And notice we don't say breaked. And we don't say righted. Yeah, so that ED rule in English is broken all the time too. Muerto, abierto, escrito, roto, hecho, made or done. Also, besides being done, it also means made. Think of how many times you pick up a souvenir and hecho in Mexico, made in Mexico. Hecho en Mexico, made in Mexico. Hecho, made in. So besides meaning done, hecho also means made. So all of these are irregulars. They are not ado idos, but they are participles. Okay. They just don't follow the ado ido rule. And these are common words that do that. And these are also very common ones as well. The more common ones I would say are dicho. From decir, wow, that's pretty weird, right? Visto, muy común, something seen, yeah? Vuelto, returned, see? Descrito, quizás sí, quizás no. That's not the most common one. Cubierto, sí? Puesto, something that is put in place, puesto. Those I would say are some really super common oddball participles. Okay, vamos a ver. Let's see what you can come up with. We're going to get to our practice session. Okay, they describe, and here is, they have to match. Person, I'm going to cover something up here in a minute, en un minuto. We're not going to talk about passive voice yet, so we're going to cover that up. They have to match the thing or the person that they describe, and they might be used with estar or they might be used without estar to describe the state or condition of that thing or that person. Okay, so here again are some very common irregular verbs that do not follow the ado either pattern, right? Visto, roto, vuelto, cubierto, hecho, abierto, puesto, muerto, dicho, escrito. Okay, bien. But okay, you can use a sentence with these participles and change the gender and gender as needed. So cansado may have a feminine form. Let's just see that you know what the multiple forms are. Cansado, to make it feminine, is
Cansada.
cansada. If you need a plural, you slap on an S, right? Enojado becomes
Enojada.
enojada, okay? Aburrido becomes
Aburrida.
aburrida. Cerrado becomes
Cerrada.
cerrada, to make it feminine, right? Okay. Preparado becomes
Preparada.
preparada. Emocionado becomes
Emocionada.
emocionada. Construido becomes
Construida.
construida, if you need to make it feminine, right? Abierto,
Abierta.
abierta. See, okay. And there's one of our very, very common ones. And this one you see on signs on stores all the time, right? You flip the sign on the door of a store. One side says cerrado, closed, during siesta time. And then they come back after siesta, they flip it to abierto, open, unless they got an electronic sign. Okay. Aquí vamos. Here we go. We are going to, I am going to send this with you into some smaller groups. And I'm going to see if you can, we will preview this. You're going to see this screen when you go into your little breakout rooms. And I want you to work into some smaller groups, and then we'll come back and see what you have figured out. Como se dice? How would you say it? So you're going to talk about desperate people. The word for people is gente, okay? And I give you the infinitive you're going to change into a participle, okay? So you're going to use this to say the desperate part, but it's going to have to talk about gente, people. I want you to figure out how to say forgotten documents. Olvidar is the part you're going to have to turn into a participle, but it's going to have to talk about documents, right? The language spoken. Here is a thing we're describing. Language. There are two nouns. Two nouns that both mean language. But when we say spoken, we're going to have to take this word hablar and change it into a participle. We're going to talk about parents, which will not be parientes. ¿Cómo se dice parents?
Padres.
Padres. So cuidado, yeah? Parientes are relatives of any kind. Pariente could be your second cousin, yeah? No es muy específico. Pariente. Padres. We're going to talk about padres, and we're going to call them worried type people. We're going to talk about animales, animals, right? We're going to say that they're dead. You got to remember what that word is. We're going to talk about windows. And windows that are open, anything with a bunch of asterisks, there means it's an oddball kind of word, not your ido list. And then, I have the shirt on. Tener is the have part. I have the shirt on. You got to conjugate this verb here to say, I have the shirt. And, poner will have to go into a participle, and it's really talking about shirt. It's not talking about the human being. It's talking about
The shirt, putting on
the shirt. Yeah. This is a common way of expressing the idea of wearing clothing in Latin America, especially. So I'm going to, the things that have to match up, the things, poner is going to have to talk about that word shirt. right? Not about yo. Okay. Bien. You're going to see that screen when you go into groups. I want you to figure out how to say those ideas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Quizás 3. I don't want to just make it 2 of you together, maybe groups of 3. Vamos a ver. Quizá, well, okay, some will be a little bit bigger, some will be a little bit smaller. Pero depende. Okay. Bien. Okay. Hit your join button and I will do a share screen for that so that you don't have to try to memorize those. Nobody's going to do that. We want to show you the items you're working on. There we go. Tengo que mirar cuánto tiempo. Uy, quizás cuánto tiempo necesitan todos en los grupos. Creo que 8 minutos más o menos. Y... Uy, no. Voy a poner mi reloj así como 8 minutos. Perfecto. Vale. Quedan 5 minutos. Ok. Ay, a ver. Ok. A ver. Muy bien. Vale, bueno, todos van a regresar en un minuto. Ok. Poco a poco, todos van a regresar. Allá.
All right, we did the
Moment.
exercises and had a review of Cero Royo. Royo? Cero, no problem. Cero Royo?
Bien, sí.
How do you
Ok.
say Cero Royo?
Rollo, sí, es posible, sí, rollo. Rollo es un problema, es una situación desagradable, algo que nos molesta mucho, es un rollo. Es así, ok. A ver, y vamos a ver cómo se expresa a cada idea con un participio, ¿ok? ¿Fue muy difícil o solamente un poquito difícil? Un poquito, sí.
Un poquito.
Es
El
fácil.
último ejemplo es el ejemplo más difícil
Sí,
de todo el grupo,
sí.
pero los otros ejemplos son bastante fáciles.
Fácil, fácil. Sí.
Bueno, y tenemos que cambiar el participio para describir la cosa. Ok, ¿qué dicen ustedes? We're going to see, cómo se expresan. What do we do with this idea? Desperate people. See, the desperate people. La gente.
Desperado.
Desesperada.
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 Uy, no es francés. La gente, no. Le gens, no. La gente desesperada, porque gente es palabra femenina, ¿sí? Es un sustantivo femenino, entonces la gente desesperada, ¿sí? Our word desperado comes from this.
Oh,
Our word desperado in English comes from this word, see? Because if
And
you're
that
an
extra
outlaw, you're
cess in there
desperate.
throws me off, though.
Yep. We were saying the
Desesperada.
same thing.
Sí, desesperada. And why does it do that? Okay, esperar means to wait.
Uh-huh.
When you put a des in front of it, it makes it a negative idea. Yeah. Actually, esperar also means to hope. So in this,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
This takes away
esperar
the
also
That
means
makes
to
more
hope.
sense.
So no hope. You're desperate. You got no hope. That's where that, yeah, yeah. La gente desesperada, okay? Bien. Okay, vale, magnífico. The forgotten documents. So now we're talking about documentos, right?
Sí.
¿Y cómo se expresa? Sí, the documents, los
Los documentos olvidados.
olvidados. Sí, olvidados. Los documentos olvidados. I could use it with estar. Los documentos estaban olvidados. Están olvidados. Okay, I can use it with estar. I can use it without. Here we're just trying to use it without to make it a shorter expression. The spoken language. Ooh, there are two words for language.
Go ahead, Karen.
La lengua or el idioma.
La lengua. And what we're going to say is the spoken language, right? La lengua.
Habladado.
Hablada.
Yeah, habladado has too many syllables.
Hablado.
Hablada. La lengua la lengua hablada en Japón es el japonés. Por ejemplo, ¿sí? Ok. ¿Cuál es la otra palabra para language?
El idioma.
El
Hablando.
idioma, el idioma.
Hablado.
Exacto, hablado. Aquí hay que usar hablado porque es el idioma. El idioma hablado en Corea del Sur es el coreano. ¿Sí? Bien. El idioma hablado en ¿dónde? En Austria es el alemán, por ejemplo. Ok, a ver. Preocupar es to worry, sí. The worried parents, los padres.
Yeah.
Preocupados.
Preocupados, ¿sí? Los padres preocupados, porque hay más que un padre, entonces preocupados, ¿sí? Y pueden ver aquí en cada ejemplo, sí, necesitamos una forma que está en la misma forma como el sustantivo. It's got to look at the noun it's talking about. Okay, the dead animals, los
Animales.
Muertos.
Muertos, dead, ¿sí? Morir, muy irregular, muertos, dead. Okay. The open windows.
Las ventanas.
Las ventanas.
Abiertas.
Exacto. Abiertas. Abrir también, muy irregular, abiertas. Pero pueden ver, you can see, we've got femenina, plural, aquí masculino, plural. ¿Sí? Depende. Aquí el ejemplo más difícil es el último. Ok. A ver. I have. Tengo. La camisa. ¿Qué pasa? Muy bien. Puesta. Tengo la camisa puesta. Sí.
Can you split tengo and puesta like that? I thought you had to say tengo puesta la camisa.
Oh, you could do that too. Tengo puesta la camisa. Sí, se puede. You can. Tengo la camisa.
Okay,
sí.
so you can say it either way.
Sí. Ok. Bien. Pero la cosa importante, puesta habla de la prenda de ropa, el tipo de ropa. Puesta is not talking about yo. It's talking about whatever clothing item it has, that you have. Now in Spain, you might have people saying, llevo una camisa, right? But in Latin America, it's often preferred to use tener puesto. And puesto will look at the article of clothing, whatever it is that you got on or that somebody else has on, and it will look at that clothing article.
So we're keeping tengo in the present tense.
Yeah, because we're just saying I have. Now, I had a white shirt on. I had a white shirt on. Is that an event or description?
It's a description.
Description. Okay. Tenía puesta, sí, una blusa blanca. Así. Bien. Okay. Vale. So that is one use, an important use of those past participles. But we said there are 3. Yeah. So the sticky one that you want to avoid actually is the one that is the true passive voice. Ooh. True passive voice is kind of a pain in the patootie. This is the one that I told you that basically you should know to recognize it when you hear it being used, and you're going to hear it being used because we're going to review. I believe there are a couple of instances in that video I gave you last week. True passive voice also uses past participle, but it often uses ser with the past participle. Okay, a form of ser. And you'll see in the video how that's going to look. So I'm going to show you on the screen what that is. Now, this is, hey, I thought we said we use estar with the past participle. Yeah, that's when you're describing. But when we use ser with the past participle, it's passive voice. And that means the subject of the sentence is not doing the action. Okay? I'll give you an example. Un ejemplo. La fortaleza. The fort. La fortaleza fue destruida por los enemigos. Ay. The fortress was
Destroyed.
destroyed by the
enemies.
enemies. Who did the destroying?
The
The
enemies.
enemies.
Wait a minute. This didn't destroy anything?
No.
No. That's why it's called passive voice. The subject of the sentence is passive. It didn't do nada. Cero. It didn't do a stinking thing. La fortaleza, it stood there. The fort, it just stood there, folks. It didn't.
No, it
do
fell
anything.
over.
It fell over. See. Okay. So this is called passive voice because the subject of the sentence does not actually do the action that is being talked about, right? A different agent, somebody did that. And here's the phrase that tells you who actually did something. Okay. Yeah. So this is passive voice. Now, sadly, English loves passive voice. Let's use it all the time. That's what we do in English. Yeah, true passive voice. That is like day to day in English. But in Spanish, not so much. In Spanish, this kind of thing is reserved for formal speech, for presentations, for newspaper articles, for papers, for meetings where you stand up in front of a bunch of people, okay? And so really, when you talk with your friends back and forth, it sounds like kind of hoity-toity to use this. So what happens is how you avoid that when you talk with people, which is what they will expect, is we take this agent and we turn the tables on that sentence. So here's how you avoid doing that in Spanish. What you wind up doing is you take that agent, los enemigos, and you take that idea of the verb, and we're going to say, oh, wait, what's the core idea here? We want destruir, right? We're going to take that verb, destruir, and we're going to use it to talk about who actually did something. And that is
Destruyeron.
los enemigos.
Destruyeron.
Destruyeron. And it gets a funny spelling, but you guys have the idea down pat. That's a definite action. That's not a descriptive lolling around in the grass in the summertime. No, no, no. Los enemigos destruyeron la fortaleza. So when you talk, when you speak with people, that is active voice. And that is what you want to use. And they do call that in Spanish, la voz activa. This is the preferred way of talking with real people, real time. This is something for formal presentation. So you should recognize it, but don't use it to talk to the guy next door. Okay. So instead of saying, oh, I see the town council, instead of saying, I see this law was passed by the town council, you're going to flip it into town council passed this law. Okay. In Spanish, that's just the preferred way of doing things. It doesn't mean passive voice is wrong, but it's only for formal stuff. Yeah. It's not for chit-chatting with your friends. So if you're standing up in front of a group talking about some important topic, passive voice may be okay. And let's see. Yeah, there. So that's use number 2 of the past participle. And use number 3 is going to be perfect tenses, meaning we're pairing it up with haber. So let's take a quick look. Let's take a quick look at last week's video so you can see how these ideas plug in, okay, real quickly. And some of them you should just recognize, and some of them you should be able to use. The descriptions that you practice with people, you should be able to use, okay? Bien? So we're going to take a quick listen here. When I was a little girl in my school, 12th of October used to be celebrated. Oh, you see the translation, I forgot. Okay, so far, all active voice, yeah? Active voice. How can it be? That's so, yeah.
Con el nombre de Día de la Raza
Ah!
o Día de la Hispanidad, un
Hiccup.
hecho tan terrible. En este video te voy a explicar por qué es erróneo decir que América fue descubierta.
Oh, here's passive voice. Fue descubierta. And notice this passive voice has to use that gender thingy. Yeah. América fue descubierta. America didn't go out and stake a claim on anybody. America is a piece of land. It did not do anything. A piece of land just sits there. Yeah. It cannot do an action of discovering. People did the discovering. So descubierta is talking about America, and we're using it with ser to say it was discovered by somebody, Colón. Okay.
¿Y por qué aún hoy, desde Latinoamérica, insistimos en que no hay nada que festejar? Porque la colonización fue un genocidio y un exterminio total de nuestras culturas ancestrales. El término descubrimiento de América comenzó a ser muy cuestionado.
All active voice. She uses passive voice appropriately when needed.
Más décadas, porque reduce y simplifica lo compleja que fue la llegada de los conquistadores.
And llegada there is used as a noun, the arrival. It just is. It can be a
A
noun.
estas tierras. Y al mismo tiempo, esta expresión borra la historia de los territorios y de las civilizaciones que existían antes de su arribo.
All active voice.
Un
Yeah.
momento. Mejor empecemos desde el principio. Colón partió de España
Active voice.
con 3 barcos y una tripulación de 90 hombres. Esta expedición fue financiada
Passive voice. An expedition, it was financed. The expedition didn't pay money to anybody. It needed to bring that money in. Somebody, an outside agent, had to provide the money to the expedition. And that's why you see fue financiada. Financiada is talking about expedición. It's using ser with the participio. Okay. The expedition was financed by somebody. So we're going to let it roll.
por los reyes católicos.
Here's your por. We're telling who did that. Financiar. Yeah. It was the government folk. In this case, they're kings. Yeah. Monarchs. The king and the queen together. Los reyes. They are the agents. Okay. So that's an appropriate use of passive voice because an expedition doesn't give money to somebody else. They need to get money so it can happen, right? Okay.
España, Isabel y Fernando de Castilla y Aragón.
And doesn't this poor woman look like she is beset with problems? Yeah. Oh, God, I got to give this guy money. You can just see it. Yeah, please, hubby, help me with this decision. By the way, he was not the best husband, but you know, I'm sure she had her issues as well. She
And
was
he's the one
probably.
who looks like the only royalty. She doesn't have a crown.
Oh, she does. Actually,
She's not wearing it there.
She was, by the way, very specific that she was not going to be second fiddle to
Right.
anybody. Oh, yeah. She did not like give up her land. We are ruling together, dear. Now, once she kicked the bucket, because she died first, he said, yay, it's all going to be mine, which technically it wasn't, but he kind of worked around it. That's a different story for another
They
time.
voted him out after she died.
Yeah, well, technically his daughter took over, but he found ways to fix that little problem and put her away.
Oh, his own daughter.
He was not the nicest dad either.
Para
Okay.
encontrar una nueva ruta comercial hacia la India. Las tres carabelas llamadas la Niña
Oh, llamadas called. They are called llamadas, and we give the names of what the ships are, and that's a use of the participio. Las tres carabelas, that's a fancy word for that big kind of boat, yeah. The galleons, those, caravel is, I guess, the English word. Llamadas, la Niña, la Pinta, la Santa Maria. There is your adjective, adjective, llamadas.
La Pinta y la Santa María partieron el 3 de agosto de
Active voice.
1492 desde el puerto de Palos de la Frontera en Huelva, España. Los barcos cruzaron el Atlántico con
Pretérito.
rumbo al oeste durante 5 semanas.
How long it happened?
Finalmente, el 12 de octubre, vieron tierra. Rodrigo de Triana, un
Pretérito.
joven sevillano, fue el primero en gritar ¡Tierra!
He was
a
the first
bordo
guy to yell
de la Pinta.
land.
Según algunos historiadores, los reyes de España hicieron una promesa. La
See, hicieron, we've got a pretérito, they made a promise.
primera persona que avistara tierra durante el viaje recibiría 100.000 maravedíes.
Oh,
El
reward.
equivalente actual sería aproximadamente 1.600.000 euros. ¿Valía la pena quedarse despierto toda la noche?
Oh, to stay awake. Despierto is a participle. A participle. It's a past participle. To stay awake. Yeah. Despierto is awake. It comes from despertar, to wake up. So stay awake. They translated that as stay up because you're awake. Yeah. So that despierto is awake.
En el carajo, el puesto de vigilancia con la ilusión de semejante premio. ¿No les parece? Con un poco de suerte y gritando la palabra mágica, un marinero podría resolver su situación económica y la de su familia por el resto de su vida.
Es como la lotería, ¿no?
Pero Rodrigo de Triana, ¿recibió el premio? Antes de saber la respuesta, anda y hace clic en la campanita para suscribirte a nuestros videos. Los reyes católicos no cumplieron con su promesa y Rodrigo de Triana no recibió ni un solo maravedí por
Not a penny.
parte de la corona. Lo que Rodrigo de Triana vio fue una isla a la que Colón llamó San Salvador.
And these are all active voice, not this thing was called, no, it's,
La
yeah.
isla hoy forma parte de un país conformado por más de 700 islas, donde actualmente se habla inglés y criollo bahameño, o sea, Bahamas. Sin embargo, los indios taínos que vivían allí
Who used to live there? We don't know how long, yeah, okay. No passive voice there, description, used to
no
live.
tenían ni idea
Had
qué
no
era
idea.
San Salvador. Ellos se referían a su tierra como Guanahani. Pero, ¿por qué se enseña que los españoles descubrieron esta isla? ¿Por qué en ninguna escuela del mundo se enseña que los habitantes de esta isla caribeña fueron los primeros en descubrir 3 carabelas que navegaban desde el este? Descubrir América implicaría que antes estaba vacía o estaba oculta o simplemente que no existía. Y esto solamente era así para los ojos de los europeos, porque el territorio
Your point of view is, yeah. The winners get to write the history books. So their point of view is what comes out. Yeah.
que hoy conocemos como América estaba habitado muchísimos
Estaba habitado. And we're describing, see, inhabited.
años
It was an
antes de la
inhabited
llegada
area.
de los europeos.
Yeah, so it wasn't empty land, it was inhabited. Okay.
Existen varias teorías de cuándo el ser humano llegó a América. Algunos estudios aseguran que el hombre pisó América hace 12.000 años, aunque otras investigaciones posteriores han situado el hecho.
And there is a perfect tense. Han situado el hecho, have located the event, have, in time. Yeah. Han situado is that third use of the past participle, which is a perfect tense. And we've got the verb not estar, not ser, but haber. And haber is han situado in this case. Okay.
Entre 16.000 y 20.000 años atrás. Hay quienes afirman que fue a través del estrecho de Bering y otros explican que fue una ruta desde Oceanía, pasando por Polinesia y entrando por América del Sur. También es importante aclarar que se descubrieron asentamientos vikingos en Norteamérica. Aparentemente, los vikingos llegaron navegando desde Escandinavia hacia el territorio que hoy conocemos como Canadá 471 años antes que Cristóbal Colón. Por ende, fueron los primeros europeos en pisar América. Igualmente, abandonaron pronto estos poblados de pescadores. Pero volvamos a 1492, cuando se dio inicio a la colonización de América. Los reinos de España y Portugal fueron los primeros en interesarse por estas ricas y productivas tierras. Pero pronto, otras potencias europeas, como Francia, Reino Unido y Holanda, se unieron a la carrera para poseer territorios de ultramar. Mientras tanto, aquí, en territorio americano, también teníamos nuestras potencias. Los mayas, los aztecas y los incas habían logrado constituir.
And there is a perfect tense. Had managed to get something done, the thing they managed to get done was establish or, set up, right? Habían logrado. And there it's just logrado. It is a past participle, but it's being used with haber. Okay. She is saying that all of these civilizations were set up before the Spaniards came. So we're with habían logrado, we're putting it further back on the timeline of history. Okay, an earlier event to all the discoveries of the Spaniards and Portuguese and Dutch and all of
Grandes
them.
imperios, los mayas, por ejemplo, habían desarrollado
And again, oh, here's past perfect. Haber with developed, had developed, something that was done before the conquerors came. We're putting it further back on the timeline.
cálculos para medir con exactitud el tiempo y el movimiento de los planetas. También manejaban un avanzado sistema de escritura. Los incas, por su parte, habían construido
And there is, again, putting it way back before the conquerors had built something before any of the Spaniards built
una
anything.
impresionante red de caminos y carreteras por los Andes que comunicaban con rapidez los diferentes puntos del imperio. Y, además de estos tres grandes imperios, existían muchísimos pueblos con otros tipos de organización social. El gran problema fue que a los europeos no les convenía pensar que los habitantes del Nuevo Mundo eran iguales que ellos. Entonces comenzaron a decir que los indígenas eran inferiores e incapaces, que su cultura era primitiva y que se comportaban como animales.
And you see, these are all things that are not pegged to time as events, but descriptions of how the conquerors viewed the conquered.
De esta manera, Europa se presentaba como la única cultura válida que venía a salvar a los salvajes de su ignorancia. Así, el nuevo continente fue dividido en
Was divided. The continent didn't do the dividing, it was divided. And now they say amongst whom. Okay. And fue dividido. This again is a true passive voice and hard to avoid. It's a formal presentation of what happened, but yeah.
potencias que organizaron administrativamente las colonias para explotar todos sus recursos. Desde entonces e incluso hasta la actualidad, desde Canadá hasta la Patagonia, los indígenas fueron fuertemente sometidos y asesinados. Y
And that was passive voice,
el
yeah.
genocidio no fue solamente con los indígenas americanos, sino también contra los esclavos traídos desde África para
And there's a description, traídos, brought over, yeah. It's describing traídos, so you got a participle again.
trabajar aquí. Por eso insistimos en que no hay que repetir el término descubrimiento de América. Nuestro continente, con sus recursos, sus paisajes, sus culturas y su gente, no estaba aquí simplemente disponible para que llegaran los europeos a saquear y encima a explicarnos cómo tenemos que vivir. Y en tu país, ¿cómo le llaman al 12 de octubre? Te leo.
Okay. Bien. Okay. So you'll see, not passive voice everywhere. Some ido as descriptions, right? Some as perfect tenses, which you don't have to know yet, and some as passive voice. But how little passive voice was used, but in appropriate settings. So don't go wild with passive voice, but do go wild with describing things using either words, yeah? So, okay, bien? Todo bien? All good? Okay. Magnífico. No hay clase la semana que viene, ¿verdad? Sí. Es una semana de descanso, más o menos. pero vamos a empezar la primera semana de abril. So we'll start up again, first week of April. Así, bien. Practicando, nada más, just practicing any stuff, any topics you want to do, of course, we will do and practice together. Y sí, eso es todo, ¿ok? Está bien.
Sí.
Está bien, gracias.
Gracias.
Fue un placer. Muchísimas gracias a usted, ¿sí? Gracias por ser personas tan amables. Thank you for being such nice people, guys. Sí, bien. Okay. Bueno, and any topics you want to do, just send them my way through email as you usually do, and that is fine. Está bien. Bueno.
Okay. You guys have a good week. Yes.
Okay. I hope I answered your question because I know Jan, you had a question about some. Did that make sense?
Yeah, because stuff came up and we thought, okay, this has to be the passive voice because it's the way, and it's almost like the passive voice is kind of said by no one. You know, is how
it's done by no one. Yeah, it's actually done by somebody, but it's done by people behind the scenes. It is. Yeah. And we'll actually take a look. I'll set up like some passive voice and have you change it into active next time, which is what you should be doing. So you'll notice I'm not asking you practice how to make passive voice because in normal conversation, not going to do it. Yeah. But how to say, oh, you know, if I heard that idea, how would I change it into talking to somebody about that? Yeah. So in other words, that whole thing, you would want to say, oh, that thing was voted on by town council. Yeah, that law didn't vote for anybody, but the people on the council. So when you talk to somebody about it, you want to say it as, oh, my council person voted for that. And the other guy voted against it. You want to turn it into active. And that's what we're going to,
And it can be either preterite or imperfect too, depending if it's a description or
Sí, depende, sí. Yeah, it depends. It'll probably be pretérito, but, you know, depends on the activity, depends on the kind of action you're talking about. Yeah. You know, something like construir, destruir, votar, vote. Those are kind of obvious that they're actions that are going to be pretérito. Yeah. Okay.
All right. All right. Everybody have a good week.
Bueno, sí.
Adios.
Sí, que tengan buen fin de semana. Have a good weekend.